Big me. You big me, I'll slap a hoe.
Ellis.podbean.com.
It's Google, motherfucker. Big me, I'll slap a hoe.
Welcome to the Caldivian, you cocksucking motherfucking dog shit ass cunt bitch.
Welcome to Chicago Open Mic. I'm your host, Ellis. Today, I'm going to talk about moving from Chicago to LA for the different comics that are in Chicago that are thinking about making the move, just to give you a little bit of advice that I've picked up along the way and to answer some of the questions that I wish that I'd had answers to before I left. Why do I call it Chicago Open Mic? This is ianellis.podbean.com. When I started in comedy, about 6 months in, I heard a podcast, and it was Mark Maron interviewing Robin Williams, and that was the first podcast I ever heard. I thought it was amazing, and as soon as it was done, I started Googling to figure out what the fuck is a podcast, and how do you start one? I imagined, this would be something you could do for $200 or $300, and I found out fairly quickly that it's something you can basically do for free. So I started my own podcast called Chicago Open Mic, and it was like Mark Maron's show, except I didn't necessarily interview famous people. I interviewed open micers and really anybody that I found interesting within the comedy scene, and spent a lot of time talking to everyone, talking to road comics, talking to headliners, talking to bookers, talking to people that just got off the stage for the very first time, and asking questions like, what made you think that idea was funny? How did you build that bit? How has that bit evolved? What do you wish you'd talk about that you hadn't talked about? Explain to me the structures of your jokes. What's your best story? What's your worst story? What's a bombing story? And I was really thirsty to know all of these things because I was new and I didn't know shit. I didn't even know what an open mic was when I started. When I started comedy, I thought you're just funny in life, and if you're funny enough, at some point someone will tap you on the shoulder and be like, hey, you should be on TV. I thought that as a grown man in his late 20s. I also thought everybody that was on TV was a millionaire, and as someone who's been on TV twice, I can tell you it's not true. First time I was on TV, I got paid nothing. The second time I was on TV, I got paid $50 for 12 hours of work, and it was awful. But it'll be airing this September. Judge Karen, check it out. The episode is called My Two Dads. It'll be my sort of actorial debut. Anyway, as an homage to that podcast that you probably can't find anywhere anymore, when I do interview other comedians, I always say, welcome to Chicago Open Mic. In Chicago, I'm known for holding court with younger comics. My comedy kids, the cast that follow me, call themselves the Caldivian, and I do that because so many people made time for me when I was starting, when I knew nothing, and I don't have a lot of answers, but I'm a little bit further down the road than a lot of people, so I'll tell you what little bit I know because people told me what little bit they know. One of my biggest inspirations is Ari Shaffir. If you don't know him, he's had some amazing moments. There's a YouTube video where he did a Q&A at the Comedy Store with new comedians, and he sat down for 4 hours and just answered all of their questions about how to start in comedy, how to get an agent, what it's like trying to make it in LA. And he didn't have all the answers, but he gave them what little bit he had. Recently on his podcast, The Skeptic Tank, there's an episode with Jonah Ray. I don't know exactly what episode it is, but he spends an hour and a half talking about his first couple years in comedy and trying to make it at the Comedy Store. And it's definitely worth checking out and listening to. He had to audition over 30 times before he got passed as a regular there. And if you're thinking about coming to LA, if you're a Chicago comic, you're probably a Comedy Store comic. So you're going to want to listen to that. The other thing he does is occasionally he'll have comedians come on his podcast and they'll play their first album, and then track by track they'll pause and they'll stop and they'll break down their material and where they were in their life when they wrote it, why they wrote it, how it differs from reality, how their jokes are structured, and I think all of that is really important to new comedians. So the reason Ari Shaffir does that recently talked about his first couple of years at the Comedy Store. He's about to record his first Comedy Central special, and he's going to be doing it at the Comedy Store this October. So get excited about that. And he just wanted people to understand sort of the journey from his first time on stage to now recording his special. So if you're a new comic, and if you're a comedy nerd, please go listen to The Skeptic Tank with Ari Shafir. That was my iPad beeping at me. This is going to be very ghetto. I'm recording live from the underpass that I live under in LA. I'm also smoking. I'm going to be pausing to smoke and drink, and you're going to hear cars going by and probably some ambulances. It's not going to be professional at all, but if you want to leave, I'll tell you what I know. So I've been in comedy since about 2010, and I just moved out here from Chicago to LA. First thing, like, I talked to a lot of comics before I left, and I was like, where should I live? And nobody gave me a good answer. Some people were like, you should live by a beach, because there's bitches at the beach. And I was like, I got a girlfriend. I don't give a fuck about bitches. And by the way, I'm moving there for comedy, not pussy. And other people would just give vague answers like this city or that city, but not like where to live in that city. So first thing I'll tell you is that the majority of the comedy clubs that you want to work at are on Sunset Boulevard. So you want to live as close to Sunset Boulevard as you possibly can. That's the Comedy Store, the Laugh Factory, and UCB. And then beyond that, there's some shitty open mics like Marty's. Marty's is a room where there's an open mic 7 days a week. It's a great place to meet other comics and build relationships with other comics, but there's no audience members, and it's a $5 cover, and I hate paying for comedy. So live as close to Sunset Boulevard as you can. I live in Mission Hills, which is about a 30-minute drive to Sunset Boulevard, and it's not that bad, because Chicago, dude, I live in the suburbs of Chicago, so I'm used to driving an hour and a half to 2 hours to make it to the city to do shitty open mics. So a half hour in the car to get to Pasadena, which is where the Ice House is, or to Sunset Boulevard, which is where Laugh Factory, UCB, and the Comedy Store are. That feels like an easy drive for me. Even the mics that are in the city, the only one that was close for me was Mojo's in Plainfield. Even the Comedy Shrine was a 20-minute drive from me. 10 more minutes and I'm at the Comedy Store. It's a beautiful thing. So pull up on Google Maps and try and figure out what's the closest place to Sunset Boulevard that you can get. I couldn't tell you exactly what city or town to live in or where there's good rent or apartments. I looked at a half dozen places before I came out here. Some of the places were in really ghetto neighborhoods. Some of the places you read the Yelp reviews and they have bed bugs. One place I stopped in, they wanted $1,500 a month for me and the comic I came out here with to move in with another dude, and it was a one room and a bathroom. Not a one, like a walk-in closet and a bathroom. And this dude was stocked up like he was waiting for the fucking zombie apocalypse. And he's like, yeah, for $1,500 a month, you can sleep on this floor with me. And I was like, you can go fuck yourself, because I will find something better. Student housing isn't that bad, but it is bad because you'll be in a better neighborhood and you'll be closer to Sunset Boulevard, but you'll also be in a house with 5 to 6 other people, and sometimes that means 4 people in a room on bunk beds, and you're still looking at $600 to $800 a month, which is fucking ridiculous. So I found a place where a guy was advertising that he had a spare room for rent for $1,100 a month, and so my roommate and I split that. Now I'm not living great. This is the paying your dues part of my life. So my roommate sleeps on a bed, and I brought like a memory foam mattress with me from Chicago, and I folded it in half and I stuck it in the closet. And so for $550 a month, I am sleeping on a mattress in a closet, and I have that much space. I mean, I basically came out here with like 2 garbage bags full of clothes and my computer, and I kind of wish I hadn't even brought that much, because if my circumstances fall apart here, like, I really would rather be homeless and sort of work it out on my own than come back to Chicago and then try and get my nut together again and then come back out here. So, it's rough. So when you do come out here, alright, so how much money should you have? I came out here with $1,200, which was not enough, but the dude that I moved out here with, like, he was ready to go, and so I didn't have time to save the money I wanted to save. I wanted to come out here with $6,000. I would say you should probably come out here with at least $10,000. It took me a month and a half to find a job. It took my roommate 2 months to find a job. The job that I found, I don't have a car, so I had to find something in walking distance. I'm making $9.20 an hour. My roommate, he's making a little bit better. He's getting $11 an hour, but he is working in a fucking awful warehouse. It stinks. And when you come out here, you have to pay first month's rent, last month's rent, and then 30 days later, your rent is due again. So that shit adds up quick. So, you know, I put $1,100 down, and then 30 days later, I had to pay another $550. And if you don't have a job, that's going to be gone almost immediately. If you have a car, you're better off if you have a car. Public transportation out here is not awful, but it is time consuming. You can get buses everywhere, but you might be on that bus for 2 or 3 hours to get someplace that's 30 minutes away. The buses run out here. You don't pay like stop to stop. It's not $2 or $3 like it is in Chicago. You buy a day pass, which is $7, which isn't that bad if you're taking the bus. You know, I get up at 6 in the morning, take the bus to work all day, take the bus home, and then if I need to, I can take the bus to a comedy club. All for $7, which works out in my benefit because I use it a lot. But if you're just going, you know, trying to get to work, $7 is rape to pay for a bus. There are a lot of Lyft drivers and Uber drivers out here. So if you're, you know, 30 minutes away, you might expect to pay $30 to $50 to get out there. But then again, if you have a car, any place you go, you're looking at spending at least $10 for parking. There's almost no place on Sunset Boulevard where you can park for free. There are parking meters. They're almost always full, but the parking meters are only for like 2 to 4 hours. So say you sign up for the Comedy Store is at 6 o'clock. You got to get there at 5:30 to be in line to sign up. You sign up, wait 2 hours, then you got to take off, move your car, come back, and hope that there's another space open for you to move your car to, for you to be able to stay there for another 4 hours. Or else you're out whatever you paid for a fucking meter, and then you got to pay $10 for parking on top of it. Sunset Boulevard is also next to one of the stadiums where they regularly have concerts. Will fuck up traffic. Fucking Drake and Lil Wayne raped us on traffic the other week. John Legend before that. And whenever those assholes are out here, not they're assholes, I love those cats, but when they're out here, parking miraculously goes up from $10 to $15, $20, $25. If you park, in the same place regularly, you can build a relationship with the people that run those spaces, but if they don't know who the fuck you are, it's, you might plan on paying $10 for parking, and then you get stuck paying $25, which sucks. Alright. How to get into the clubs. I wrote some notes on my iPad. There are some phenomenal shows out here. Meltdown, I haven't been to yet, but I've heard nothing but great things. Comedy Store, I'm a Chicago comic, which means, like, my dream clubs are the Comedy Store and the Cellar. I love the Comedy Store. It's my favorite place to be. To get in on the Comedy Store is not the easiest thing in the world. It's also not the worst thing. I'm going to give you a couple tricks. So at 6 o'clock they set down the list for you to sign up. Now I have been standing right next to where they set the list down, and by the time they finish their announcements about signing up, 10 people have forced themselves in between me and the list, and suddenly I'm 25 on the list. Which seems awful, but it actually doesn't matter if you're the first person on the list or the last person on the list. The open mic is booked off of the people that work at the Comedy Store, and they tend to book the people that they know, cats that they know from other open mics, people whose names they just are familiar with. If you're a dick, they're gonna spread the word, hey, don't even bother giving this dude stage time, he's a fucking asshole. If you're a drunk or a drug addict, don't worry about it, you're not getting on. I signed up 4 or 5 times, didn't get on. And then finally I signed up as Ian fucking Ellis. And they booked me solely off of the fact that they wanted to write on a piece of paper, Ian fucking Ellis. And so I've been telling people, as retarded and unusual as this sounds, hyphenate your name. Bill Cruz, a Chicago comic that's moving out here, I told him sign up as Bill the Gay Bully Cruz. And he will have a higher chance of getting on that open mic than somebody that they've never fucking heard of. The best thing to do outside of that is just to regularly try and get on other shows at the Comedy Store and build a relationship with the people that work there. Because if they know you, they'll help you get stage time. But if they don't know you, they're not going to fuck with you. It's not personal, it's business, it's just the same bullshit politics that you're going to deal with anywhere. There's 2 shows at the Comedy Store on Monday. There's the open mic, and then there's also Kill Tony. Kill Tony is a podcast, deathsquad.tv. Definitely check it out. Kill Tony is Tony Hinchcliffe, Brian Redband, and then 2 guest hosts. The first time I was on it, it was Doug Benson and Jesse Joyce. The second time, it was Ralphie May and his wife. This is your chance. You get 1 minute to do comedy in front of that panel of 4 people, and then they critique your comedy or talk to you or try and give you advice. And you're usually up there for 7 to 8 minutes. There's a wonderful chance to be on stage in front of people that you've probably admired from TV. Those might not be the comics that you like, but the comics change every week, and so there's always a chance for you to appear in front of someone that you really admire. It's hard to kill it in a minute, but it's not impossible. So I've signed up for 4 or 5 times. The 2 times that I've gotten on, I tweeted about the show before the show started, and they picked my name. I don't know if it's coincidence or if they're looking at Twitter before the show starts and then just like setting names of people that tweet about it aside. Or I would say, if you want to get on Kill Tony, tweet about the show before you get in there. Hold on a second, I'm lighting a cigarette. So that's Monday. Tuesday at the Comedy Store, they have the roast battle. And those dudes are all over Twitter at roast battle. The first time I did it, I was on Kill Tony. I appeared before Doug Benson and Jesse Joyce. You probably don't know who Jesse Joyce is, but he writes for all of the roasts, and he used to write material for Greg Giraldo. I'm a big fan of the roast, so I was a big fan of him, and I've listened to him on podcasts. You should definitely Google his name and check him out. He was recently on David Tell's show, I don't know, Roadwork or whatever the fuck it's called, the one that Junior was on. So Jesse Joyce was there. I was talking to him after the show. He smokes, he hangs out, and he was like, I was asking him, how do you get to be on the Comedy Central roast? And I was like, is there an audition process? Can you submit material, or is it just who you know? And he said, it's just who you know, but they have roast battles here on Tuesday, and the roast battles are always attended by Jeff Ross, and then he usually brings in guest hosts. Motorcycle, get excited. I did the roast battle with my boy Alex Wong, the D is silent, Asian motherfucker with braces. He's a cool dude. He's one of my best friends I've made out here in LA. Me and Alex did it because Jesse told us to do it, and so we went and talked to Brian Moses, who books the show, and he signed us up. It's not hard to get signed up there because they're always looking for new undercard contestants. You might not get to headline the show, but if you do well, they remember you. Like the next week, I showed up, and Brian Moses, who hosts all kinds of show there, he hosted a show I went to that was attended. The comics on the show that he was hosting were Doug Stanhope and Bill Burr, Tony Hinchcliffe, Brian Redband, Nikki Glazer, and it was rumored that Joey Diaz and fucking Mark Maron were both going to stop through. They wound up not coming by. But fucking, I get to meet Doug Stanhope that night. Fucking amazing. And I get to see Bill Burr do comedy. Phenomenal. And the guy that hosted that show knew me because I did the roast battle. Like, knew me by name. Like, saw me walking and was like, hey, Ian, what's up? So, you know, he's a good person to know that you want to know you. Because all of it is about, you know, people seeing you where you are. So I would recommend doing the roast battle. Now, not everybody's a roast comedian. I've been on 4 or 5 roast and a roast battle, and so So I've roasted like 50 people, and most of those people were fucking awful. And if you're awful, don't do it. But if you have it in you, I know Johnny P, he's a great roast comedian. The last couple of roasts I was on, I wrote my jokes by, I would text him, me and Johnny get drunk, and we just text roast jokes back and forth. And that's how I wrote most of the roast jokes that I've done on the last 2 roasts that I was on and the roast battle that I did. So, get on there, and then, win or lose, whatever the fuck happens, the next week you're guaranteed a spot on the show that goes on before the roast. Now, the roast battle is rated as one of the #1 shows in LA right now. Like, reporters and agents are constantly there. Alex, the dude that roasted me in the battle, after the battle, he was approached by 2 agents from CAA that were like, hey, who are you? What's up? What's good? And you got to sit down and talk with them and begin building a relationship. That's an important thing. One of the things that Ari said is like 90% of your opportunities in this game will come from other comics. So I got to be on there, you know, largely through Alex, because Alex knew Brian. And, you know, me and Alex have done a number of things. He takes me out to a lot of shows. Like, he's a really good dude. Same thing in Chicago. Like, you know, when I was running Mojo's, I tried to book the comics that knew me. A lot of the feature sets that I got because comics, they were friends of mine. Some people booked me because of my art. They didn't even book me because of my comedy. So you always want to be talking to other people as much as you can. The good news is, like, once you get out here, I'm not a particularly social person. Like, I love talking to the people that I love talking to, but I don't like talking to new people because I'm awful with names. There's a dude out here named Scott Kidd, super cool dude, like, regular feature out here in LA. I met him at Marty's. Really good dude, talked to me a lot. The 3rd time we spoke, I introduced him to somebody else as Eric because I couldn't remember his name, and then I felt like a piece of shit because of it. But the good news, if you're funny, you don't have to be outgoing because people will come and talk to you because people recognize funny and they want to be around it. So if you are outgoing, it's going to help you a lot. But the best thing you can do is just be funny because people recognize funny. That's that fucking horse shit about be undeniable. Smoking a cigarette. So, other open mics. The other open mic that I love out here is the Ice House in Pasadena. That is on Wednesdays. A lot of the open mics out here, they run on a lottery system where you sign up, they put your name in a bucket, and then they draw them out, quote-unquote, at random. The Ice House, which regularly has an audience, and a good audience, they don't stir the bucket at all. So if you want to get on, be the last person to put your name in the bucket, it's a stupid thing, but it will help you out immensely. Ken Gar, who's a Chicago comic, regularly hosts it. He's a really good dude. Like, if you don't get on one week, he'll guarantee you a spot the next week, but some weeks he's not there because he's also a road comic. When he's not there, if you don't get up, you're just fucked. And there have been weeks where I saw people show up, 5 o'clock because they want to be the first person on the list, and then they didn't stir the bucket, their name sat at the bottom, they didn't get up, and they weren't guaranteed a place the next week, and they just got fucked. The LA comedy scene. Some of my buddies, Scott Brennan, he's one of my best friends in comedy in real life. He was like, man, I don't want to go to LA, I don't want to kiss nobody's ass. There's not a lot of kissing ass out here, at least none that I've seen. I can't tell you about the difference between the couple of comedy scenes I've been in. I spent like a week in St. Louis with Kimberly Marion, Leroy Hicks, and Mitch Hurley. We went down there to do some road gigs, and their scene was way too supportive. You could show up to a feature set unannounced, and they would put you on for 20 minutes, and nobody really broke balls or roasted at all. And as a result, there was a lot of really weak comics getting way too much stage time and not growing as comics because the stakes weren't as high. So that's the danger of a scene being too supportive. Not to say that they didn't have a good comedy scene, it just was nowhere near as good as it could have been. Now the opposite of that, I also spent a week in Vegas, and in Vegas, everybody was fucking miserable and hateful, and like the comics don't watch each other, the audiences almost don't watch each other, and I don't know how anybody accomplishes shit out there because you never have any kind of response to the audience. I saw some guys that went up that were better than any headliner I've ever seen. They were fucking phenomenal comics, and I was the only one in the room laughing. And then I would go up, and once I'm on stage, if I'm the only one laughing, now there's nobody laughing. And it's just like it's way too bitter. And they have a lot of rooms that could be phenomenal rooms if the comics would support each other, even like a little bit, just like a baseline of respect. But it doesn't happen. They also have a lot of comedy contests in Las Vegas. So if you're ever out there, there was at least 3 of them a week when I was out there. Every comedy contest I went to, the winner was just the last person to go up because the judges would get so drunk they could only remember the name of the last person that went up. So I saw people, you can win 150 a week. Just hope you want to be the fucking last person to go up every time you go out there. LA comedy scene, very different. Ari's talked about it, like you're standing in line with homeless people that have everything they own in a fucking suitcase that smell awful standing next to you. You have crazy people, you have drunk people, you have actors. Now there's a lot of shit talked about LA before I came out here about like their scene is really weak and anybody could make it here. There are definitely a shit ton of weak comics out here, but they're not getting the stage time, at least not at the Comedy Store. The Comedy Store is by comics for comics, and they don't give a fuck. They'll just not put you up if they smell that you're an actor or that you don't really give a shit about comedy. They're not gonna fuck with you. I talked about how to get out of the Comedy Store. Yeah, drinking too much. I'll let you listen to that plane fly by while I take a drag of a cigarette. Oh, LA comedy scene. That's what the fuck I was talking about. Totally spaced out. So St. Louis, too nice. Nevada, too mean. St. Louis, LA, everybody's just out for themselves. And a lot of people are so focused on themselves that they don't even acknowledge that other people are around. And there's really no sense of community at all, or even like people giving a fuck about each other at the bottom level. As you show yourself to be funny, the good comics will drift toward each other. I've made 3 or 4 friends out here, and those are the 3 or 4 people that always kill, and they came and talked to me because I always kill, or at least as often as I can I try to kill. And the 3 or 4 of us, we talk and we hang out, and we're slowly building our own community. But don't be shaken if you get out here and nobody will talk to you. People don't talk to each other because they're trying to work out their hot bits and figure out how to get on commercials. I'm talking about where to get your fucking headshots. Ugh. I hate it. I never wanted to be anything other than a comic, so the idea of having a sitcom, like, if I had a sketch show, I wouldn't want it, but I would take it just to bring up other comics, but all I want to do is fucking comedy, man, so actors are, ugh, I have no time. Stage time out here. Just about every open mic you go to, you get 3 minutes. Some mics you get 1 minute. So I know in Chicago, if you're in the suburbs, you are frequently blessed with 5 to 8 minutes. If you're in the city, it's usually 3 to 5 minutes. Just know that when you get out here, it's going to be 3 minutes. If you're on your hustle, you can hit 2 or 3 mics a night, but it's not promised, and you're definitely going to have a car and put in the work to get to 2 or 3 mics. Don't expect help. There are 4 or 5 comics that I knew in Chicago they're doing it out here in LA right now. They're blowing up and they're doing big. And it may just be that they're just on another level and they don't have time for me, or it's just that we weren't close enough friends. But the 3 or 4 people that I knew from Chicago, the only person that has tried to help me at all is Beth Stelling. She, when I sent out questions to the 3 or 4 comics I know saying, like, where should I live? Like, what are the places to get up? The kind of stuff that I'm trying to tell you now. And Beth Stelling was the only one that wrote me back and was like, hey, this is where I live. This is about what the rent is like. These are the places that I go up. Here's a website where you can find different open mics. So shout out to Beth Stelling. She's the best. I love her to death. Cameron Esposito wrote me back and just, sort of gave me the 411 on her show. Put your hands together. But that's about it. And not saying anything bad about Cameron. She's ridiculously busy. She just put out an album. She's on tour. She's doing a million podcasts. She's on another level. She's doing Chelsea Lately and Saturday Night Live and hanging out with like another level. So I don't necessarily expect her to be like, oh, hey, I kind of know you. Let me tell you this. Why should you leave? First and foremost, the weather in Chicago sucks 10 dicks. It's fucking too hot and humid in the summer, too cold and wretched in the winter. There's only 2 weeks of decent fucking weather. LA, some days it gets up to 90 and it's a little warm, but other than that, it's been perfect weather every day since I've been here. I also, since I've been here, finally feel like I'm part of comedy. Like in Chicago, it never felt like anything that I did mattered. And I did a lot in Chicago. I did like 5 roasts, I did 2 podcasts, I recorded an album I did road work, I brought in New York comic Dante Nero, who's my mentor, and I recorded his album, and he put me on his album with like a bonus feature track. So check out Dante Nero live on iTunes, you get to hear 15 minutes of me. I headlined, I did feature sets regularly, like I did a lot of shit in Chicago, and none of it felt like it ever amounted to anything. And being here, I'm not necessarily doing bigger things, but just being around everybody, it feels like I'm part of comedy. Like yesterday I saw Dom Irera just hanging out. Neil Brennan is at the Comedy Store almost every night, and when he's done with his set, he hangs out and he smokes and he talks to comics. Getting to see Bill Burr and Doug Stanhope and Mark Maron. I got to meet Maron and talk to him. Like, it just feels like all the people that I worship are here, and being in the same room that they're going up on the same stage they're going on, in front of the same audience. Fucking motorcycle. Oh, my dick is so big. Anyway, I feel more like I'm part of comedy, and I'm 32. I'm old as shit, so I wish that I'd come out here. I wish that I'd known I wanted to do comedy 10 years ago to be able to come out here and do comedy 10 years ago. But I didn't. I started late. I didn't start till I was 27. And, I put in my time before I came out here. When should you leave? It's different for every comic. If you're... The first 2 years in comedy, you should just be trying to get comfortable on stage. And then past those 2 years, you should be trying to develop material. For the last year and a half, I've been doing a new... For the last year and a half or so, I've been doing a new 5 to 7 minutes every week. My philosophy behind it towards building material is if only a minute works every week, that's an extra 52 minutes a year toward having an act that I've built. That's not going to work for everyone, but there are other comics like Nick Foscares. He's a really new comic that he adopted my philosophy, and he does a new 5 minutes every week, and he has material to choose from. And I was running an open mic with Johnny Peckus called See You Next Tuesday at Mojo's in Plainfield. The show's still going on. It's still one of the hottest shows you can do in the suburbs because it has a real audience. But a lot of the regular comics that are there stopped going there. And they didn't stop going because the show got shitty. They stopped going because they don't produce new material fast enough. And it's the same audience week to week, and that audience didn't want to hear their shit, the same shit 4 weeks in a row. So they stopped getting the response they wanted, and they started going to other open mics. And that's a good thing. You should definitely get in front of as many audiences as you can, but there's also, you should be writing new material constantly. Anyway, in terms of coming out here, you're starting over when you get here. Like, even if you're great, unless you're a name, like because you're on TV, you're starting with a blank slate, and you have to prove yourself. So you definitely want to have 30 to 45 minutes of material ready, but know that when you get here, you're going to be open micing for a year to 2 years. So if my roommate has, 8 to 10 minutes, maybe 15, and that's fine for the shows that he's doing out here because he doesn't have to generate that much new material. But if you're coming out here ready to make it, I would say have 45 minutes of material before you come out here. Alright, there's a weird skip in the podcast there because my alarm went off and that stopped the recording. So I was saying, like, when to move out here. I think there are a lot of phenomenally talented comics in Chicago that will never make it because they're never going to leave. I'm not going to name any names, but there are a lot of people out there that also are ready to go and don't make the mistake of staying too late because like Ari Shaffir was saying it on his thing about the Comedy Store, in your 20s, if you have to couch surf and if you have to have shitty jobs, it's not that bad. But if you're 40 and you're struggling to make rent because you're trying to make comedy your focus, it's fucking awful. So don't make the mistake of staying in Chicago for too long, or whatever hometown you're in, if you're listening to this from another hometown. By the way, if you're in another hometown, spend a year to 2 years in Chicago. It's a wonderful, it's comedy college. That's what Cameron Esposito called it, because there's ball breaking just like in New York. There's a lot of high stakes and low stakes and bullshit, and it will make you a better comic, because if you're shitty, people will ignore you or tell you that you're shitty to your face. But if you're great, people will also tell you that you're great and book you regularly. And there's no industry in Chicago, so it's a wonderful place to grow. Yeah. So, there are a lot of Chicago comics, like Tim Brennan, I think, is ready. Jack Baker, I think, is ready. Louis Ryan is ready. Jordan Holmes is ready. Nick Foscaris could probably come out here and he would be fine with the material that he has. Taking 2 years to open mic and still grow. But don't, I love Matt Drufke to death, but he's got a kid, so he can't leave. And just being in Chicago, his options are a lot more limited. If he had 2 or 3 years to put into being out here in LA, he could be on TV within 2 or 3 years and making a hell of a lot more money and really living the dream. Love him to death. Very talented guy. Kristen Toomey is someone that I hope comes out here. I know she's doing it big in Chicago, and I think she would fucking blow the doors down here in LA. And she might not need to leave because she's so undeniable that, even being in Chicago, she's getting the attention that she needs to get. Jay Washington, leave. You need to be here, man. He's another one. He's got a kid. Basically, my advice is don't have a fucking kid or family. Also, relationships suck when you're making a move. I'm in a long-distance relationship right now, and it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's also not the best. Because I like smashing mad puss, and my lady's not here. So, if I was alone, that would be fine, but, living in one room with another person who's attached to my hip, and I'm attached to their hip, and I can't go anywhere without them, it's a really hard time to find time to jack it. Not being able to jack it and not being able to fuck is a very frustrating situation to be in. Headshots. Get your fucking headshots. I know it's Hollywood douchebag horseshit, but you will meet people and have opportunities to be on TV. Within my first 2 weeks of being here, I got to be on the fucking Judge Karen show, and I had to have a headshot to do it. I found a place where my roommate and I got to split the costs, so he gave both of us headshots for $50 each, but there are other people out here paying like $100 to $800. It doesn't seem that complicated. I think you can find someone to give you fucking headshots out there. Between New York or LA, I say if you just want to be a comic, like you're a comics comic, probably go to New York. I came to LA because I hope to make my income writing for TV shows, and then just be able to just do the stand-up on the side and keep it pure and not have to worry about it being my only means of income. Stand-up's something I would do for free, and it's certainly not my only talent, so it's not the only thing I do. Branding yourself. Brian Christopher, we did a Doves and Divans open mic, and I was asking him what advice he had for people coming to LA. He just kept talking about fucking fashion and look nice, and unfortunately that horseshit plays into it. Just about every mic I've gone to, if I was wearing flip-flops, people were talking about how awful I was dressed. So if you have nice clothes, wear them. I don't give a shit. I'm funny enough that I can look awful, but if you can look nice, fucking look nice. In Chicago, I'm known for wearing a blue hoodie. That was my way of branding myself. If you saw the hoodie, you knew it was me. Podcasts are a wonderful thing. Like I say, I started Chicago Open Mic. It opened a lot of doors for me. I got to ask a lot of questions, have a lot of questions answered. It also gave me access to bookers and talent and people that move me up. Some of them probably faster than I should have been moved up. The handful of famous people that I've had on my show, I reached out to them and had them on my podcast. Now I'm out here in LA. Not everybody has a podcast. By the time some of you get out here, maybe every person on the planet will have one, just like a fucking Twitter account. But if you use it sparingly and use it wisely, it is a wonderful tool to make connections with people. Say you want to get at the comedy store and they're looking to book somebody that they know. Fucking talk to somebody that works there. Say, hey, can I put you on a podcast? Talk to them for an hour-long conversation. You kind of know them, they kind of know you. The next time they see your name, they're going to help you out. Please don't exploit this information to be like, I'm going to start a podcast and fucking interview everyone. I'm going to interview my way to the top. I'd rather you suck the dick to the top. But a podcast is a useful tool. My podcast, I put out a new 5 to 7 minutes of new material every week, and I mix that under a beat like a hip-hop single. It's based on 50 Cent, being the mixtape king, and he made his name putting out mixed singles week to week. So because of my podcast, I have a legitimate fan base. I have people that support me. I have thousands of people that know who I am, that support me as a comic. Some of you can't generate material like that. Don't start a podcast just to fucking start one and have it be fucking awful. Have some sort of idea in mind, but if you're going to do one, it is a wonderful tool to build a fan base, to brand yourself, and it's an excuse to make connections with people and to talk to people that you look up to and worship. I'm trying to type in my code here. I think that might be all I've got. How much money to have? Try to have at least 10 grand. Try to have your car paid off. When to leave. Jay Leno would say, like, he would go from place to place, and as soon as he was killing in a place, he would move on to the next place, because you never want to get too comfortable in one place. So I guess if you're killing everywhere in Chicago, that would mean it's time for you to fucking get the fuck out of there. Jobs and expenses. Like I said, I take the bus around here a lot. I just use an app to figure out all my fucking bus routes. I was lucky enough, I went to college in my 20s, and the first time I moved out, I did not buy toilet paper, shampoo, toothpaste, shower curtain, like a lot of utility things, because I had never lived on my own before. I'd always lived with my parents, and I took for granted that those things don't just fucking magically appear. So when you're budgeting to come out here, make sure you do budget to buy things like deodorant, toothpaste, shower. People don't want to work with you if you smell. I've listened to a podcast called The Writer's Room about people that work in TV. A lot of the auditions to work on TV shows are, do we want to hang out with you? Are you cool to have in a room? Do you smell? If you smell awful, you're not going to get a job. I'm working at a fucking grocery store, and because of it, I've had to shave off all of my facial hair. I like to have like a really thin goatee because I'm a fat, and I enjoy having the illusion of a chin. But I had to shave that off to have this fucking job. It stinks. I think that's all I've got, you guys. We're coming in at 40 minutes. I guess the only other advice I would say is, like, comedy is ultimately like a very lonely journey. It's something that you do only with yourself. And in Chicago, like, we're very much a community. The suburbs are a community. The north side's a community. South side's a community. And there are people that drift between all of these communities. And, the 4 or 5 people that are starting when you're starting tend to become your peer group. And, some of them hang on, some of them disappear. But eventually you have to leave. And I had to leave. When I was in Chicago, I was running the most successful show in the suburbs, and I was getting booked to feature at least once a month, and I was fairly well known and fairly well respected, at least in my own head. Could be full of shit, but things were really good, and I had to leave, and none of that meant shit. Like, once again, I was starting over, and I was on my own, and I had to come out here and be on my own. And now I'm making a name for myself, by myself, and I'm hoping to get over the wall so that I can live off of my creativity, and I'm hoping to make it enough that I can help bring some of my friends up over that wall, because I know some of my favorite, friends in comics, they're not going to make it unless I reach back and pull them up. But say I start touring with someone, well, I'm on my own again. Like, it doesn't even matter if I've made 10 friends with comics here. I gotta go be on the road by myself. And if my career goes on for 20, 30, 40 years, a lot of that time is just going to be me on the road. Hopefully I can bring people I know along, but you have to do it yourself. So when you're thinking about should you move, you can be really comfortable in a place because you have your friends and your community, but ultimately this is something that you have to do for yourself, and you have to believe in yourself, and you have to be delusional to a certain extent. And loyalty is a wonderful thing. I always try and look out for the comics that looked out for me. I'm doing this podcast to try and pay forward all of the information that people paid to me, and I do everything I can to help out the people that were really loyal to me and that were really looked out for me. But ultimately, I'm on a journey by myself, and when you leave, you're going to be in the same boat. So always do what's best for you. Put yourself first, and nobody else will. Don't let, if you're part of any kind of group or anything, don't fucking waste too much time being there because your buddy that you want to go with isn't ready to go. Like, you have to do it for you because they might not ever be ready. And if you can, help out other comics, man. Like, I'm paying forward a little bit that I got. Hopefully you pay forward a little bit that you got. And there's not one pie. Some people feel like, oh, if he's getting that, then that's part of the pie gone, and that means there's pie that I can't have. Everybody can have their own pie. Nobody's success is your failure. The other thing I would say is don't wait for opportunities that you can create for yourself. I was doing my own podcast a long time before people started asking me to be on other podcasts. I was running my own shows before people were asking me to be on other shows. Most of my opportunities have come from doing my own thing, people asking if they can be part of it, and then having a good experience and wanting me to be part of what they're doing. So create your own lane, do your own thing, take care of yourself, and try to take care of others as much as you can. I don't know if this is going to help or not. I don't have all the answers. I'm just a little bit further down the road than some people. If you have questions, please feel free to write. My email is amykickstarter, amykickstarter@gmail.com. I also do art commissions if you need a poster for a fucking show or want a profile picture or whatever. $20 commissions, hit me up. That money helps me out a lot because it becomes my fuck around and comedy and beer money, or sometimes it's the difference between me being able to pay rent or not being able to pay rent. But if a bunch of people write me questions, I'll do another one of these. I don't really like talking because I'm a meat and potatoes guy, and I hate podcasts where people just meander like I'm meandering right now. I'd rather get to the point or have a topic to talk about or talk to somebody else. I don't want to just fucking ramble. So yeah, my name's Ian Ellis. Hopefully this helped. Look out for each other, and look out for me. Alright, man. Peace.